The Wakanda mission design is built on the same foundation as Marvel's Avengers, but with new objectives and an extra focus on dangerous traversal, exploration, and puzzles.
Such a disappointment.
Even though this is currently the closest thing we'll ever have to a completely standalone AAA Black Panther game, the sad fact of the matter is it's still Marvel's Avengers at its core. Anyways, welcome back, true believers and all you merry Marvelites, to another very interesting video I'm finally able to completely provide for you today, which is basically giving you my overall in-depth thoughts and my final perspective on the main situation revolving around the latest update for Marvel's Avengers the game, with none other than the Black Panther War for Wakanda expansion, which again is added into the game for absolutely free. But basically, there are a lot of good elements about this, because before you dislike the video thinking that this is nothing but hate, it's not. There are some good elements about this expansion, if you want to call it that. I would kind of debate otherwise, which we will get into. But there are obviously a lot of flaws that this expansion still has, mainly because of how the main structure of Avengers is, and this expansion doesn't really do anything to change the core foundations of the game itself. And just to clarify exactly how much of this I've played, because it's not like, oh, Evan's just rambling and he doesn't know what he's talking about. No, because if you have checked previously on my channel, I did completely live stream the entire main Black Panther War for Wakanda campaign for nearly 5.5 hours, doing all the missions and some of the side stuff and looting and grinding. And also in my spare time, as you can see from this picture here, I did level up T'Challa to his max main hero level of level 50, and I'm really close to power level 150, but I'm not gonna keep grinding just to get 15 more levels, since I'm pretty darn close regardless. And basically right now, I'm just waiting until they include Spider-Man in the game to play another character. Because sadly, that is one of the main flaws of this expansion, or just these types of content drops that we are seeing for Marvel's Avengers, is it's not doing enough to elongate the experience with its live service formula. And instead, even though this expansion is technically longer than the previous hero operations of Clint Barton and Kate Bishop, there still is the same exact amount of content that you would expect from those other operations into this expansion. It's just now you're able to play in a different region of Wakanda. However, that was kind of the same situation with Clint Barton Hawkeye, where you were able to explore the future wasteland of the world and fight Maestro the villain. And now it's the same thing where you're playing as Black Panther in Wakanda, a different region and a different character, with two bosses in this case of Crossbones and Claw. But the biggest difference here that I will give for this expansion compared to the previous two hero operations is that we do have a lot more emphasis on the world of Wakanda itself and the Wakandans as characters, primarily of course with the main character, T'Challa the Black Panther himself, which I think was played beautifully by Christopher Judge, aka Kratos from the 2018 God of War game, and the other supporting cast members of the Wakandan tribe, with of course Shuri, the princess, as well as Okoye, the leader of the Dora Milaje, and Sawabari, who's kind of the more spiritual guide, assistant within Wakanda that you do get to meet and talk to from time to time. So I can definitely see how much of a beloved character that Black Panther is from the comics and movies, of course, with the wonderful performance that we had from Chadwick Boseman, rest in power. But also, I do see this being a pretty big mass appeal for the majority of gamers to be able to fully immerse themselves within such an incredibly detailed character in a AAA format for the very first time. In fact, I've even seen certain YouTubers actually go back to play Marvel's Avengers for months that they've been away, just to play for Black Panther specifically and not care about anything else, because some people are viewing this as kind of a separate standalone experience compared to the larger ongoing narrative that is going with the main campaign and the other hero operations with the Future Imperfect DLC and the Taking Aim DLC. Because for the most part, and I can definitely see this being a pro or a con for certain people, is that this is basically a separate standalone narrative that fully features Black Panther at the forefront of this story, instead of connecting it more to the ongoing branching narrative that we were told previously, with the future time travel stuff and the Kree invasion and trying to take down AIM as the core main threat. So if you're someone who doesn't really care about the larger goals that Avengers is trying to aim for as a live service game, and simply wants to play an entertaining Black Panther story and then be done with it, I definitely think that you will find this enjoyable, to say the least. But as for whether or not it's actually going to completely save the game or be a complete 180 turnaround like what we have seen with previous live service games, that is where I personally have to draw the line and say that this simply feels like more of the same. Because if this was just a standard single player game with a massive Black Panther additional DLC content drop with it, then I wouldn't personally think anything of it, because that's just how this single player game would be structured. However, I do find it weird it's taken them a full year to actually release it. But, once again, you have to fully understand exactly what game Marvel's Avengers is. That, of course, being a live service looter brawler, like another game that I think does it much, much better with that of Genshin Impact. Because given all the main issues that I personally feel like Marvel's Avengers has as a game, I definitely feel like another live service looter brawler like Genshin does it completely different and in a much better way compared to what we're seeing here. The majority of the loot that you collect while grinding and beating through separate enemies in different areas doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things, mainly considering that there isn't a massive amount of endgame content to dive into in order to justify the grind that you're progressing towards. And adding that same archaic and formulaic gameplay structure on top of simply beating up waves and waves of enemies with no variation whatsoever, it definitely gets old extremely fast. The fact of the matter is that this is still a live service game that thrives off of continuous updates in order to fully engage the player base to keep investing time within the game itself. So if there isn't any additional hero or endgame content that wants to encourage the player to keep playing the game, then they're simply going to play the extra content that has been included, like that of the Black Panther War for Wakanda expansion, finish the story, possibly grind up T'Challa to his max level, and then stop playing the game until they add more content. Which is exactly what I've personally done with every single hero that has been included within the game post-launch, and the same exact situation has occurred now with Black Panther. But again, at face value, Marvel's Avengers is still Marvel's Avengers. Now, it just has a nice fresh coat of paint with the addition of all 3 extra heroes that have been included post-launch with Clint Barton Hawkeye, Kate Bishop Hawkeye, and the latest addition of course being Black Panther, with the next hero scheduled to likely be Spider-Man, supposedly launching sometime in late 2021. But by any means do I personally think that this expansion has completely saved or made a brand new experience for Marvel's Avengers in any way. And at face value, I do personally have to say no, but I do personally recommend that you should dive into Marvel's Avengers right now, given that the game does feel like a more complete experience, with the main campaign completely detailed, with Kamala Khan's origin story and the reassemble stuff with reuniting all the other Avengers. You do have the other 2 hero operations with Clint Barton and Kate Bishop, and of course this latest expansion with Black Panther, and if you play all of that for your very first time, then you will be able to have a much more leveled up roster of characters before they include Spider-Man by the end of the year. And given the fact that I have personally seen the game on sale for a relatively low price, I definitely think that they're trying to make their money back, given that as of this recording, Marvel's Avengers has still lost over $70 million and hasn't recuperated their development cost ever since. This is of course the main reason why the majority of the cosmetics, takedowns, nameplates, and the overall costumes that are included within the game are trying to be sold at a massive amount of money, given the other microtransactions that are included within this game, and the fact that you have to pay for each individual hero's battle pass that is outside of the core 6 heroes you get at launch. And in my personal opinion, even though these expansions and other hero drops are free, the amount of pricing that are included within these extra bits of content that try and flesh out the cosmetic attires for the characters are completely overpriced and aren't justified in any way, shape, and form. It really pains me when I have to talk about this game in this way because, again, I personally love Marvel and Marvel games and all the characters that have been included in these massive AAA titles, which I always want to succeed. Of course, I'm a major fan of both of the Insomniac Spider-Man games. I'm looking forward to Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy, but at its core, at its face value base aesthetic, Marvel's Avengers just does not work as a live service game. And if we have to keep waiting and waiting for months on end for even more content to be included to further flesh out and expand this main experience, it's not going to last too long in the main player base's eyes, and instead they'll just play the extra content, level up their characters to the max level if they really want to invest time into it, and then stop playing until they include other characters and or content to dive into, because the end game content that should be in a live service game like this is just not there, and in my opinion, it doesn't make for too much of an engaging experience. So, with all that said, I should say, that is my overall thoughts and perspective on Marvel's Avengers Black Panther War for Wakanda expansion. Everybody, thank you all so much for watching. Leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you did enjoy. Again, if you love Black Panther, I definitely think you'll enjoy this. But if I would recommend to personally dive into the game now, knowing what this game is, I would just say play it for the story to really dive into this Marvel world. But I wouldn't say spend more time to grind and loot characters, because that experience just isn't a fun type of way to spend your time. And instead, I would recommend to play some other games that actually do the live service model justice, again, like that of which being Genshin Impact, which in my opinion is exactly how live service should be done. And on this scale of a AAA format, it's obviously a different type of experience, but honestly, they really need to get their act together if they want to have this game live for years to come, as they've been claiming it for it to be. And whether or not we will get like a year 2 round of content with more characters and hero operations and maybe expansions to come down the line, that's not confirmed as of yet. We only know that Spider-Man is coming by the end of the year, but after he's out, we don't necessarily know how bright of a future Marvel's Avengers might have down the line. So let me know all your thoughts about the game and this expansion in the comment section down below. I'd love to hear all of them. And until next time, true believers, thank you all so much for watching. Stay merry, Marvelites, and peace out.